and good afternoon to all. My presentation is directly related to the guiding questions of Webinar 1, that's jointly organized by CIB and UNISDR, and it relates to the questions themselves. So the main issue is enabling risk reduction through planning. That's the title. I respond to this: yes, planning could maintain risk reduction in several distinct modes. I have to clarify this in the first place. Risk analysis and reduction involves a projection, an assessment of future developments, and implies devising efficient means of monitoring forces of development. As Luhmann has once stated, that risk is colonizing future. Now, seeing future, assessing future developments is a very planning asset. The planning profession has this training for complex systems. Such art and science of colonizing future is the basic expertise and exercise of professional planning activity. This is one issue. But secondly, assessment of risks in the city requires an understanding of the prospective states of interrelated socioeconomic spatial systems. Risk takes place in space. So management and supervision of space is entrusted with the planning profession, again, as a second reason why we would consider the possibility of enabling risk reduction through planning. And thirdly, risk reduction requires the collaboration of various forms of expertise. This type of synchronization of efforts and efficient allocation of human resources is a capacity that the planning profession has inherited. Human resources planning is part of the overall planning. Maybe I will clarify this as I go along. So there are at least three distinct modes why we say yes, it's possible that planning could enable risk reduction. International disaster risk reduction policy, seem to target mainly the local authorities, mayors or provincial governors. These authorities are, even if they are fully convinced to follow a powerful policy of DRR in person, they are temporarily there. What we would like to have is a sustainable, settled culture or consolidated culture of risk reduction. And therefore, we have to target also the, obviously, local. No, I'm not going into constraints yet. The second slide, please. So we should address a greater spectrum of actors rather than simply authorities, but local communities and planners must be in the picture as well. And they are the actual durable carriers of the disaster risk reduction culture and actors of a sustainable DRR policy, not only the authorities that who are temporarily there. The planning system today has to consider and serve for various objectives in a combined understanding of the local, public, and global benefits must be implanted in the planning system. That's another aspect that we have to keep in considering the framework of what we are discussing. Finally, in this slide, I want to underline the fact that planning could account for DRR If we think in terms of disasters, there are different contexts in which risks are tackled by planning, and I tend to identify these as reconstruction planning. This is post-disaster compensation procedures. Hello, can you hear me? Emergency preparedness plans or contingency plans. This is a specific type of plan for the management of disaster circumstances itself. Mitigation planning is the main concern. This deals with the reduction of risks and disaster losses. And finally, resilience planning has to relate to the organization and achievement of a sustainable social and material development, another context of planning related to disasters. Next, please. Now, the second major question is about the constraints, why this is not possible at the moment in planning. There are a number of reasons for that. The first issue is that in many countries, bodies conventionally responsible for disaster activities still conduct policy. Besides that, but the bodies that act for emergencies, search and rescue, and command and control units are often the sole authority in disaster affairs. This is typically true for Turkey. So, tents and blankets experts are assumed to be capable of DRR activities as well. This is not true, obviously. This is not valid as a statement. And this becomes a real obstacle in the implementation of new international DRR policy at the national and local levels. International relations in disaster affairs of many countries are also run by these national units. It is difficult for these units to comprehend fully the implications of the new policy, yet they would not tolerate other professional inclusions in the issue of disasters, in the affairs of disasters. A second major constraint I see is that emergency planning is the most frequently used device in relation to probable crises and disasters, yet contents and preparation procedures demand extensive upgrading. In many countries, this is a valid condition. The practice of emergency plan preparation is often carried out by the non-eligible personnel. These plans often disregard the spatial context, the locational attributes of facilities and vulnerabilities. It disregards a systems view of emergency facilities. It disregards vulnerabilities, risk assessment, and scenario development. And it disregards participatory preparation and community action. This is the major failures of the emergency planning, and I see that as a major obstacle. This has to be upgraded. Next, please. Going on with the constraints, I see no formal mitigation planning. Risk management requires a contemporary understanding of planning. Mitigation planning is not described in the current legal systems, even if a type of obligation is expressed in some systems for risk assessment. It is not explained how this is to be carried out. The use of the term land use planning is, to my mind, to subscribe to a reductionist attitude. It is based on the confines of the existing institutional structures. This narrow interpretation of planning is a significant barrier in our thinking. Land use planning is the product of the material requirements of the late 19th century, when development of technology and exploitation of natural resources was the main concern. Scope of this conventional planning approach could only provide disconnected measures in DRR. Contemporary circumstances are significantly different, and requirements are putting limits to growth and technology, protection of resources, and avoidance of risks. Our need is, therefore, for an integrated form of planning to monitor complex socioeconomic spatial systems and comprehensive analysis of risk sectors of a city for participatory action and implementation. To my mind, therefore, land use planning is a palliative in the DRR. Basic tools of land use planning, such as prohibiting, zoning, distancing of development, limiting densities, are decisions difficult to supervise. Such decisions must be integrated with other powers of policy like taxation, rent control, transfer of development rights, and other social support and incentives projects. Next, please. Can I have the next slide? Thank you. Another constraint I observe is the unavailability of hazard information. Publicly accessible hazard information, if provided, is a major instrument of monitoring market behavior. Demand and physical development follows that. This has not become a standard method of serving for DRR. Risk information has a taming effect in the market. People will tend to invest, purchase, or rent safer locations. A city-level hazard information base could contribute much to DRR. Another constraint I see is the absence of mechanisms to encourage DRR. That is, there are some examples of such mechanisms, but this should be extensively employed. This could be maintained by allocating sizable funds for the preparation of mitigation planning. Efficient examples of such plans could be awarded for their implementation by means of donations and credits. This approach generates a climate for competitive performance in DRR. City level, national level, even international level organization of competitive incentive triggering on attractive funds could have a snowballing effect, encouraging other sources to serve DRR as well. An example of such a system is provided by DMA 2000 USA. This is not operating in full due to external reasons, but the very structure of the idea is exemplified in that basic law, Robert Stafford Act. Funds, eligibility, procedures of application, criteria of evaluation, method of auditing are well described in this system. Now, this approach orients all bodies, units, and individuals. Think about their risks and make use of their creative powers to devise effective methods of tackling them. A culture of risk avoidance will be the consequence, will be the inevitable consequence of such an approach. Next, please. Next slide, please. Right. This is a conventional state. This is perhaps standard in very many countries. The planning system and the disasters regulatory systems have developed in their own trajectories. They do not recognize each other often. This has to be overcome as well. Okay, maybe I'm using too much of time. Let's proceed, please. Right, barriers to local authorities and municipalities often to my experience, are in the form of powers of the central authorities not to support the local, to refuse to support DRR activities. They also often have the powers to intrude in the local plans. They can have powers to identify special areas and make their central plans imposed on the local plans. They may exercise powers to intervene even in the municipality budgets. Such powers have been generated very recently in this country, and powers to over-audit. This is for just to create disturbance to the local authorities, and so long as DRR expenditure are not officially recognized, such over-auditing could be a real trouble for the local authorities. So barriers to municipalities is a very real area for studies. Next, please. Well, a few points on the informal settlements, perhaps. Informal settlements are usually considered as shanty towns, but this may not be true. In this country, they are very substantial development, and such unauthorized development may take very different forms. Almost 70% of Istanbul is unauthorized. These are blocks, high blocks of reinforced concrete buildings, but still they did not have engineering services, and we don't know how robust such buildings are. Typically, the main problem lies in Turkey in such areas. Regeneration projects is probably one way of solving this problem. Shanty settlements are probably less vulnerable in physical terms compared to such high story blocks and districts. Vulnerabilities in shanty settlements can be appropriately dealt with, perhaps more with social programs and financial measures. Next, please. So we have to differentiate different types of unauthorized blocks. Policies will have to differ inevitably. Multi-stakeholder perspective, to my mind, is directly related to the identification of risk sectors in a city. This is similar to the identification of economic sectors in the whole system. And risk sectors in cities are quite a number of sectors, perhaps. In each sector, what we need to have is a coordination of the involved parties and generate participation within the sectors themselves to identify measures and policies to be followed. Next, please. My final slide 10. Slide 10. Can I have that? Right. And where should our research efforts go is another issue in the guiding questions. I consider the development of prioritization methods is a significant area of research that we need. How do we prioritize our risks? Where to attend first is a major scientific question, and this needs extensive research. Hazard information availability to monitor land markets has a practical ends, and this has to be dealt with the technology and research. Development of effective tools of control for mitigation planning, as I have stated before. and the issue of involving private interests in mitigation funding. This is all I can state for the moment in response to the guiding questions set in webinar 1. And I thank you for the patience you have had. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Murat. We had a lot of barriers. We overcame them, and we have...
Can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Because I had not adjusted my headset yet. Thanks very much, Murat. Excellent presentation. Very broad, very quiet, very structured. A good response to the questions in webinar 1. We overcame a couple of barriers, but we have it on record now.
When will there be a chance to ask questions?
We can do, if you want to, a separate, let's say, question and answer session, but orally, which is a little bit different from the questions and answers we had before. But we can do that, and we can record that.
Wonderful.
And in the meantime, I'm trying to go back to the WebEx Center. I have to stop sharing. Okay. And we can make that a part of the total recording. I prefer to do that after the second presentation. Is that okay, Cassidy?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, if Murat will stay with us, then that's
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I'm holding on.
Thank you.
Fatma, I have made you the presenter.
All right.
If you share your desktop and show us your presentation, that would be great.
Good.
Very smooth. This is how.
All right. I'll start.
Perfectly visible and hearable. Go for it.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It's really a pleasure for me to be part of this session. My presentation is on the Arab region, what's happening there, the main characteristics, the main challenges, and what needs to be done to enhance the resilience of Arab cities. When we look at the Arab region, it includes 22 Arab countries, 10 in Africa and 12 in West Asia. We have the 6 rich oil producing countries, we have 6 least developed countries, and then we have the 10 medium income countries in the Mashriq and the Maghreb. 56% of the population live in cities, and this ratio is expected to increase to 68% in 2050. Urbanization has been driven by economic development, migration to the oil-rich countries, drought and conflict-driven displacement. The growth has been around the primary cities in each country, but now it is also around the secondary cities. And the governments aim to have a balanced, equitable development between the different regions in the countries. But for sure, access to services is better in the urban than in the rural area. There is a real problem with the supply of affordable housing. This is a problem in the Maghreb and Mashriq countries, in the least developed countries, but in the oil-producing countries, this is no problem. But they have a problem of providing housing to the low-income foreign workers. The private sector has a real role in providing housing for the upper income levels in all the countries of the region, but this has not been the case for the lower and middle income households. There is a real problem of providing housing because of lack of adequate finance mechanisms. In the middle income Arab countries, in the Mashriq and Maghreb countries, the low income groups, they tend to live in informal settlement, and we can see that even from the upper income groups, every now and then households drop for different reasons, and they have to live in informal settlement. And if we would like, I think the informal settlement ratio is a bit higher than the poverty ratio for this reason. However, the situation is much worse in the least developed Arab countries, and the informal settlements there are in a very precarious situation. Countries, also the Mashrek countries, they have also an additional problem because they house 50% of the world's registered refugees, and those living in the refugee camps face severe conditions. But there has been efforts from several Arab countries to upgrade the informal settlement and to provide affordable housing. Tunisia has a very good experience in this respect, has eliminated informal settlements to a large extent, and Morocco also has a very good program for affordable housing. And these are good examples for other Arab countries to follow. Also within the region, new cities are being built as centers of excellence for innovation, technology, and research. And I believe that Masdar City in Abu Dhabi is a very good example, which aims at zero CO2 emissions. Well, there has been difficulty for the governments to provide services, especially for the poor. The civil society organizations have been playing an increasing important role. When we look at the major challenges faced by the cities, I think the preservation of the cultural heritage is a real challenge because it's really threatened by the high rate of growth of the urban population. Also, the provision of affordable and decent housing continues to be a major challenge, and this also results in a steady growth in informal settlements. When we look at the population, 53% are under the age of 25. So this also adds to the pressures on the urban systems. They require jobs and also affordable housing. Also, urban solid waste is still a major problem in many cities of the region. Added to this, we have the impacts of climate change. The Arab region is one of the most vulnerable regions of the world to potential impacts of climate change. At present, the Arab region has the lowest water per capita in the world. And all these adds to the has negative repercussions on the sustainable development process. Climate change will increase water scarcity and the frequency of the severe droughts. Because when we look at the region, it is a dry region that is getting drier, and I think we have to learn to live with drought. This drought also will impact agriculture productivity by 10 to 40%. We'll have to depend more on food imports. At present, the region imports 70% of its food requirements, and the food trade deficit is over $30 billion. Drought is already felt in the region. What's happened in Darfur is a clear example. And in the last 3 or 4 years, there has been severe drought in Syria, which led to the migration of 1 million people to informal settlements around the major cities. It's expected that the temperature will increase by 3 centigrades by 2050. And with the urban heat island effect, nighttime temperature will increase by an additional 3 centigrades. All these together with the fact that the region has a high solar radiation and soils that tend to absorb more the heat and to store it, the region will be facing more extreme temperatures. Flash flooding is also a major concern in the region because as a result of concrete surfaces that do not absorb water, also for inadequate drainage system, and for the construction, increasing construction in low-lying areas. Climate change will increase the risk from this hazard further because of more intense rainfall events or extreme rainfall events. In addition to that, when you look at the region, 70% of the population live along the 37,000 kilometer coastline in low-lying coastal areas. This means that any sea level rise will affect the region's densely populated coastal cities, will affect the economic, industrial, and business centers, including the oil production facilities in the oil-producing countries because they are on the coastline or offshore. That's why we look at the climate change, that it will have significant and largely negative impacts on the cities in the Arab world, will raise the cost of living, and also will have a destabilizing effect on the Arab region more than what's happening right now from the Arabs. When we look at the actions to build the resilience of the Arab cities, there are two sets of actions. The two sets for their implementation for sure require effective partnership between the public and private sector, civil society, so as we can shape well the Arab cities of the 21st century to be more resilient cities. The first is to continue with to improve basic urban planning, advance service delivery, and enhance the sustainability of Arab cities by upgrading the living conditions of the urban pool. Core steps require reducing corruption, enforcing existing regulations and zoning development, developing affordable housing away from risk zones, and ensuring equitable land tenure policy. There has been progress in developing standardized building codes in most countries of the region. Even we have tried within the League of Arab States, which is the intergovernmental body including all Arab countries, to develop common Arab building codes. So far, these codes are being used as guidelines. But with the increase of the continuing increase in informal settlements, I think we have to develop a simple building code to be used by contractors in these informal settlements. India has a very good experience in this regard, and I think we have to benefit and build on it. Also, we have to promote the green architecture principle, which means the science and art of performing the buildings and settlements in harmony and compatibility with the surrounding environment. The old Arab architecture is a very good example for green agriculture, and I think we have to develop it to adapt to our modern needs. To implement urban planning successfully, we need to develop a decentralizing decision-making process and to better coordinate the roles of central and local governments and increase the participation of private sector, civil society in urban planning. Already several countries have started on that track, and Morocco is a very good example. The second set of actions respond specifically to climate risk. We need to develop and build on what we have already, a very good early warning systems to identify, assess, and monitor risk. Also, we have to undertake a vulnerability assessment to identify critical infrastructure and risk-prone zones and their exposure to climate hazards, identify resilience options, and compare with them. As example, for instance, with regard to transport systems, we need to rethink first so that we can ensure that they do not block natural water channels, contribute to flooding, and second, to ensure that they act as safe evacuation routes or shelters during flood. But most importantly, we have to develop publicly accessible and reliable information and analysis related to resilience, provide human, technical and other resources and services to support resilience, build climate resilience through social protection and other measures. And I think I have to add to that also that we have to have the financial resources, the required financial resources, and this we have also to tap on what is available on the international arena. Thank you. That's all. Thank you very much for hearing.
Fatma, thank you very much. If you stop sharing your desktop. Okay, thank you very much. There are some extreme situations in the Arab world and region. I wasn't aware of that. It's an inspiring presentation. Thank you. Cassidy, you wanted to have a discussion session. May I ask you to lead that? We will continue the recording and make it available.
Okay, that would be great. I have a question for each of the speakers, or maybe a couple of questions for Murat and a comment or question particularly for Fatma. And so my first question for Murat is about he talks about different kinds of planning, being reconstruction planning, mitigation planning, contingency planning, etc., and ends with resilience planning. And I'm interested to know, does he see these kind of types of planning, I would see as being sort of somewhat separate to the existing urban planning processes that are going on? So my question is, does he see planning for disaster risk as a separate planning process, or something that should be integrated into existing city planning processes? And to what extent is that possible in the Turkish context? Murat, did you hear my question?
I had it, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Am I supposed to respond?
I think so, yes. Please.
Okay. Right. Thank you for the question. The reason I differentiate about the types of planning responding to disaster needs according to different levels and contexts is that they need specific tools and specific procedures to serve for the purpose. You know, the reconstruction period has nothing to do with emergency planning and or organizational framework revisions is a totally different matter. So these different types of planning has different content in their techniques, in their approaches, in their tools, and even the concepts they will have to employ would be different. That's why I need to differentiate it. We cannot just simply put everything in a single bag. Disasters and planning. That seems awkward to me. Every type, every purpose related to disasters has to have its main specialization of planning. On the other hand, integration, yes, integration especially is different from the current institutional structure of planning. Integration is necessary with other types of or sectors of regulations. We need to have close connections with the regulations of let's say taxation, property taxation, and other forms of taxation, control of prices or rent control in the physical environment. These are all conventionally separate and distinct legal systems in themselves. Now, we need to have connections with such distinct legal provisions. That is this is my understanding of integration. Integrating into the whole economy, the whole society, social aspects, social programming, social projects have to be very much part of disaster planning as well. Well, I can go on talking indefinitely, but would this be sufficient for you?
Yes, thank you very much. And just one more question leading on from that. You talk about involving private interests in mitigation funding. Could you just expand a little bit more on what you meant by that?
Well, yes. This probably is also related to the method of encouraging or triggering investments into DRR. Maybe I have to elaborate on how such systems of assigning or allocating a fund or an award for a successful plan, and then allow actors to compete for such funds. This is one aspect. I mean, you probably know the PAN awards in Europe and in France. What they do is, this is purely architectural, but we can draw parallels. What they do is they have annual competitions in housing design, and whoever has the first three degrees, the awards, the three awards, have the privilege of lowered interest rates, lowered higher volumes of credits provided, etc. So both the builders and households are inclined to favor such projects. This is a way of realizing interesting and successful projects, actually implementing them. Similar structures competitive structures can be established in the DRR environment. If you have a central fund, in fact, this can be organized in the international level or national level, or if you like, at the local level as well. Let's say the central government of a country has established a fund for supporting successful mitigation plans, and allow municipalities to compete for it. And obviously, such use of funds would trickle down to the interests of the private builders as well. Is this example relevant enough for you?
That's good. Thank you. Interesting idea to think about in the planning context.
There is more to it, of course, but I won't have the time to explain.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And
thank you for the questions. Thank you.
Fatima, I just have a question for you. You speak about planning, about specifically responding to climate risks in the Arab region, and you identified, extreme sort of possibilities of the type of risks that exists there. And I'm just wondering if you see it that, climate risks correspond to certain types of hazards, but then that's leaving out earthquake hazards, which are quite also important, I understand, in the Arab region. So I'm just wondering how you see to bring those two aspects together in a planning sense.
You mean also earthquakes?
Also earthquakes, or I don't think you have volcanic hazards in your region?
No, we don't have volcanics, but earthquakes, we have them every now and then. And as I told you that with the Arab building codes, and even in the national building codes of some countries, they have already developed building codes that include how to act with the risks from seismic risks, I mean. This is already there, and the most important that we have to bear this into taking the seismic risks into account while building the settlements and all the kinds of construction. And this is already, with regard to the formal settlement, is taken into account, but with the informal settlement, for sure not. That's why I was saying it's good if we develop a simple building code for the informal settlement. And India has a very good example that we can follow, I mean.
Yeah, that's a very big challenge about how to address, safe building when there's a lot of informal building.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could just identify, because Murat had done that and Wim had asked that of the other participants. Could you outline, Fatima, what you see as being the major areas for research in this area? What needs to be tackled?
With regard to the building resilience?
Yes.
I think we have to have carry out assessment for the risks in the area. We have to know the prone areas where there are and how we should act with the different hazards. But for me, when you say what is the main hazard for the Arab region, I tell you it is drought. Because when you have drought, you don't have water, you don't have enough food, and these are very major challenges. I believe that the main challenge for the Arab region is how to live with drought, how with smaller quantities of water and land we can produce more food and have a decent living for our people.
Thank you. Very big challenges. And Murat, would you like to just give one last word on what you see as being the major research challenge for planning?
I thought I mentioned that. Can I ask a question to Mala?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes.
Hello. I have 2 points to ask, actually. In the face of this increased rate of urbanization, are there any pilot projects or any incentives for rural communities in the Arab world? I wonder that. That is one point that might also deserve research, perhaps. The other is, you mentioned the traditional architecture of the Arab cities, and
yes.
You mentioned the codes, building codes, etc. Since you are concentrating on climate issues as well, does the current building codes in the Arab world has this sensitivity for the microclimate conditions that the traditional architecture had, making use of the slightest breeze or a drop of water, the micro efficiency of the climatic conditions. These could be research areas as well. I don't know what you might suggest. Thank you.
With regard to rural development, this is an issue of great importance for all countries of the region, and efforts are done in this respect. I mean, it is also a major point when we are developing an Arab strategy to address climate change, rural development and agricultural development. This is very important. With regard to the building codes and do we take the climate change into account? I think not much work has been done in this respect. But some Arab countries already are trying to develop how to say green building codes, taking into account the Arab architecture. But I think more work needs to be done in there. Because when you look now at the Arab cities, the building is going on the Western style with this big windows, glass windows,
Yes.
and the concrete building. And all that is, will mean that we need more energy for the air conditioning and for the lighting and all that. And I think in some studies they have correlated 1 centigrade increase in temperature will require how much energy for the air conditioning. There are some studies in this respect.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Cassidy?
Yes.
Can I go back to your question? Further research possibilities. My pet topic has always been this, especially for Istanbul, comprehensive regeneration, feasibility of comprehensive regeneration versus the retrofitting of individual buildings. This is a major critical issue in this country, and I have been working on this for a long time now. A major research area, I would consider.
So the question is what to do with areas that are already have been built and are at risk.
That's what this is what I target, regeneration of such areas.
Yeah.
How to make this feasible and agreeable to the locals, and also in very many different aspects. I have produced several research and publications on that. Still going on.
It's a very complex and heated topic in Istanbul, especially.
Yes, indeed.
Good. Well, we should include that also in the.
It's a good stepping stone towards a couple of closing remarks. First, Cassidy, Murat, Fatma, if I may use your first names. I thank you very much for your contributions to this second part of the webinar on how urban planning can support risk reduction. The recordings will be available probably already tomorrow when we make a general announcement to all the approximately 600 attendees or people who registered that those are available. As I said in other webinars, we will include all those final remarks and recommendations on research into the production of a research roadmap. Within CIB, the task group TG63 on disasters in the built environment, where Cassidy is one of the coordinators, will be the platform to work towards that research roadmap. We will do that together with, and we aim to produce a joint publication with the UNISDR, International Strategy for Disaster Resilience. We hope to have that available by the end of the year, and we again will make it available to all those 600 or more people who registered for this webinar. This series of webinars, I mean. I thank you very much.